In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court just handed former President Trump a major legal victory that could reshape how government power, individual rights, and even citizenship itself work in America. This isn't just a courtroom technicality, it's a ruling that changes how quickly and broadly federal policies can be blocked by judges. One immediate result? Trump's controversial order to end birthright citizenship is now allowed in parts of the country, creating a legal patchwork where a child's citizenship may depend on the state they're born in. Whether you're a parent, immigrant, voter, or simply someone who cares about how laws apply to you, this decision could directly impact your life. Let's break down what happened, why it matters, and what comes next. What are nationwide injunctions, and why do they matter? To understand why this ruling is so important, it helps to understand what nationwide injunctions are and how they've been used. Imagine a controversial executive order is signed, like an immigration policy or a new healthcare regulation. If someone affected by that policy sues, they might ask a court to block the policy. If the court agrees, it can issue an injunction, which is basically a court order stopping the policy from being enforced. For decades, courts have issued nationwide injunctions, meaning the policy is stopped everywhere in the country, not just in the state or district where the case was filed. This has been a powerful tool because it prevents a patchwork of different rules in different states and ensures consistency. The immediate impact: birthright citizenship. One of the first and most significant effects of this ruling is on President Trump's executive order attempting to end birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to undocumented immigrants or foreign nationals without green cards. For over 150 years, the U.S. has followed the principle of jus soli, right of the soil, meaning that anyone born on American soil is automatically a U.S. citizen. This is rooted in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, passed after the Civil War to guarantee citizenship to former slaves and anyone born in the United States. This principle was also affirmed by the Supreme Court in 1898, in a landmark case involving the child of Chinese immigrants, cementing birthright citizenship as a fundamental right. The consequences of a legal patchwork. This patchwork isn't just a confusing legal quirk. It's a potentially devastating reality for families and children. Imagine being a new parent and worrying that your child's citizenship status depends on which hospital you deliver in or which state you live in. In some states, children born to undocumented immigrants could be denied citizenship, while in others, they receive full rights automatically. This kind of uncertainty can cause emotional distress and practical problems for families trying to navigate healthcare, education, and legal systems. Moreover, this ruling is not limited to birthright citizenship. It fundamentally changes the balance of power between courts and the executive branch, with ripple effects across many areas of policy. Broader implications: executive power and courts. The ruling opens the door for other executive policies that have faced nationwide injunctions to move forward in parts of the country. These include voter ID laws, education policies targeting diversity and inclusion programs, federal funding freezes, and more. Many such policies have been stalled in court for months or years, thanks in part to nationwide injunctions. Now, with the courts restricted in their ability to issue these broad blocks, the executive branch gains greater leeway to implement policies on a state-by-state basis before the courts finish reviewing their legality. This change speeds up the enforcement of federal policies and could lead to more uneven, state-dependent governance. The debate: balance of power or erosion of rights. Reactions to the ruling have been deeply divided. Supporters argue that it restores the proper balance of power. They believe courts should not wield unchecked authority to block presidential decisions nationwide, based on a single local lawsuit. They warn that nationwide injunctions allow unelected judges to act as gatekeepers, overriding policies supported by the elected branches of government and undermining democratic accountability. President Trump hailed the decision as a win for the Constitution and the rule of law, framing it as a correction to judicial overreach. What comes next? The legal and practical uncertainties. At the moment, the Trump administration hasn't provided clear guidance on how the birthright citizenship change will be enforced practically. Reporters have asked if hospitals will check immigration status at birth, or if government agencies will deny Social Security numbers or passports to children born in certain states. The answers have been vague, with officials saying it will be worked out over time. This uncertainty adds to the confusion and anxiety faced by affected families. Why are we here? The role of Congress and executive power. To fully understand how we've arrived at this moment of legal upheaval, it's important to step back and look at the broader forces at play, particularly the ongoing failures of Congress and the growing power of the executive branch. For decades, America's immigration system has been widely recognized as outdated, complex, and ill-equipped to handle modern realities. Despite repeated calls for comprehensive reform from both political parties, Congress has largely failed to pass significant immigration legislation since the Reagan administration's Immigration Reform and Control Act in 1986. Since then, piecemeal efforts have been introduced, but meaningful reform that addresses citizenship pathways, border security, visa systems, and birthright citizenship has repeatedly stalled. What this means for you and your community. Even if you're not directly impacted by the immediate changes to birthright citizenship, this Supreme Court decision could still significantly shape the policies that govern your daily life. Here's why. When nationwide injunctions become harder to obtain, executive orders can start taking effect in some states while remaining blocked in others. This creates a fractured legal landscape where your rights and access to services can vary dramatically based on where you live. For example, imagine a new federal voter ID mandate. If a court in Illinois blocks it, but a court in Texas doesn't, voters in Texas might face new restrictions that those in Illinois do not, or consider a federal health care policy that limits access to certain reproductive health services. In one state, those limits might be enforced immediately, while in another, they might be paused for months or years due to local lawsuits. Why understanding this matters? It's easy to think of Supreme Court decisions as abstract legal battles that don't really touch our everyday lives. But this case is different. It changes the rules of how power works in America. It changes how policies get made, how quickly they can take effect, and how rights are protected or delayed, depending on where you live. The decision signals a broader shift in the balance of power between the presidency and the judiciary, with the potential to reshape how the U.S. government operates for years to come. It's not just about one executive order or one lawsuit. It's about who gets to decide what rules apply to you and when. It's about fairness, justice, and consistency in the application of the law across the country. When the rules of that process change, everything else, from your health care to your voting rights, can change too. That's why it's so important to pay attention. This ruling may not dominate the headlines, but its effects will likely outlast many of the political debates happening today. What you can do and where to learn more. If you're feeling uncertain or worried about how this decision might affect you, your family, or your community, staying informed is your best defense. Start by following updates from trusted legal experts, journalists, and advocacy organizations that specialize in civil rights, immigration, and constitutional law. Groups like the ACLU, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, And immigrant rights organizations will likely play key roles in shaping the next steps through litigation and public education. Talk to people in your community. Share information, ask questions, and support those who may be directly affected by these changes. Understanding your rights and knowing when and how they might vary based on where you live will help you navigate this evolving landscape. If you're eligible, reach out to your local, state, and federal representatives to voice your concerns or ask for their stance on these shifting policies. Political pressure can influence how quickly Congress chooses to act on clarifying laws that are currently stuck in legal gray zones.